Right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. We just had slight technical difficulties getting started. I know we were frozen for a little bit, but I think everyone can see and hear us now. So welcome to the webinar. Today, as you all know, and hopefully you know already, we'll be talking about how we can tackle technology projects using pro bono. And this is something that I know our team at VMware Foundation has been thinking about for quite some time and have been really fortunate to partner with Taproot in this work. And so I'll just start by sharing a little bit about that partnership. My name is Miriam Becca, and I'm from the VMware Foundation team, and I'm with...
Hi, I'm Stephanie, and I am with Taproot Foundation on the Advisory Services team.
I was joking, this kind of feels like our YouTube channel, like welcome to our channel. But we're thrilled to have an opportunity to share with you all today about technology pro bono and how we can make it more impactful. Taproot and our team partnered a little over 3 years ago when we wanted to better understand how we could more meaningfully deliver technology projects to nonprofits, leveraging our skilled employees. And there's a lot of resources out there around how this can happen in the legal space. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with legal pro bono in finance and marketing, but there seemed to be a gap and opportunity to better explore how this can happen in the tech space. And so we partnered with Taproot, and I'm sure most of the people on the call know Taproot. They are a global leader in the space of pro bono, not only in their thought leadership, but also in the work that they do to connect skilled volunteers to nonprofits. So it felt like a really natural fit as we explored this work. And as I mentioned, we did 3 years of research starting back in 2016. And the final compilation of the work was released this spring at the Global Pro Bono Summit. And so with that, I'll go into what we'll be talking about today. Steph will be setting the stage in the context of kind of why this work is important, why it's meaningful in the space, and how it's making an impact. And then we'll get into the crux of the research. And one of the main tools that came out of the research is a tool called the Solution Development Framework, which takes pro bono teams through 4 phases, including discover, design, implement, and maintain. With that, we'll be doing a deep dive into discover and design. We'll talk about why these phases are particularly important for pro bono programming. And then we'll touch on what's next and kind of practical applications of what you all can do immediately after this call in terms of taking some of this information back into your work. And then finally, we'll leave some time for Q&A. But we definitely want to let everyone know this is meant to be very interactive. We'll have quite a few questions for you all throughout. And if you do have questions, feel free to add them into the chat. We have a colleague of ours that's helping to moderate that. So feel free to ask questions throughout, but just know that there will be dedicated time at the end for that. And so to kind of get us started, I wanted to start with a warm-up question just to get an idea of who's on the line and who's joining us today. Thank you everyone for writing your names and the organizations that you're representing. And we have a few more questions here to get to know everyone on the call better. We want to know whether you are representing a nonprofit, if you are a tech professional, whether or not you've used pro bono before, and of course, how you heard about us. We'll give people a few seconds to answer. All right, a couple more seconds, so get in your answers, submit. All right, should we look at, sure, okay, some people are still submitting their answers. Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at these results. So it looks like we have about a pretty good distribution. About half of the people are representing a nonprofit, half the people are tech professionals. It looks like about half of the room has done pro bono before. That's terrific. And others, this is new for them. That's exciting. And the majority of people heard about this from Taproot and VMware, which makes sense. And then also social media. That's awesome. The Twitterverse works. Terrific, excellent. So Steph will get us started by setting the stage and setting the context around some of this work.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Miriam. So before we dive into how you can begin to tackle a technology project with pro bono, we're going to talk a little bit about why we're focusing on this issue. So we're going to do another poll now that you've had some practice with it. Wanted to take some time and see how much of its operating budget do you think a nonprofit typically spends on overhead? So again, we're going to give folks a little bit to submit your answers, and then we will continue on and see what people think. We're seeing a pretty interesting distribution right now. We're going to give it a couple more seconds. So hit that submit button. You might need to scroll down a little bit to submit your answers. All right. Okay. So getting most people reporting in, let's take a look at what those answers are. So it looks like there's a pretty interesting distribution. It seems like most people think that nonprofits are spending about 20% on overhead. So with that, what's actually the case is the average US nonprofit reports spending only 8.7% of its total budget on overhead. And that's compared to the 20% average traditionally spent by companies to build a strong infrastructure. So some of those numbers that you guys were putting in really represents more of that corporate lens and how much private companies are spending. And so this stat really shows that, you know, when it comes to nonprofit organizations, many are missing out on, you know, staff development or hiring opportunities, making do with entire departments, or delaying really key capacity building projects to really cut costs in different ways. And that effectively handicaps organizations' ability to best serve their communities. And when it comes to technology, 85% of nonprofits do report including technology in their strategic plans. However, many organizations also report that they don't feel very confident about the type of expertise that they have to be able to adequately leverage technology. They report a lack of time. And again, as we saw in the previous slide, many nonprofits are operating on lean budgets and limited staff. So there's limited bandwidth as well, which means that they don't have the luxury of really testing and trying out technology that ultimately may not meet their needs. And so this is where pro bono comes in. We believe that tech pro bono can be a really powerful resource that can help nonprofits maximize the impact of technology, and also a great way for pro bono consultants to be able to leverage their technical skills to really build capacity for these organizations and support their community partners. And so, as Miriam talked about at the top, pro bono is the donation of professional expertise benefiting organizations to working to improve society. And again, it's not just for lawyers. While most people are familiar with pro bono in the legal field, we're working to expand the understanding of pro bono to all areas of expertise. And we see pro bono as being a way to help nonprofits really fill in those gaps that they experience in terms of different capacity building resources, help them address some of the challenges that they, and help address some of the challenges that they are facing at their organizations. And pro bono is also a high impact volunteer opportunity and a great way, again, for those who want to use their skills to really be able to give back and make a positive impact in the community. And so today, technology is driving change in every sector, and every organization really needs technology to succeed. And again, we see technology pro bono as a really powerful and key way to ensure that nonprofits are equipped to leverage the efficiencies and transformation that technology can provide. And so with that, we wanted to talk a little bit about a foundational tenet of pro bono. And this is for pro bono more broadly, but especially as we are thinking about technology pro bono. And that is taking a client-centric approach. Pro bono is about how we engage as much as it is about the solutions that we're creating. So taking a client-centric approach really elevates the needs and context of a nonprofit to inform how capacity building solutions are designed, developed, and deployed. So think holistically about a nonprofit's core need. Think about the context to ensure that whatever the solution may be, it is something that will be impactful and will be sustainable for the organization. And so all that's to say, technology is just one piece of a much larger solution. People and processes really do matter, and a technology solution will only be successful if staff are, properly trained on how to use the tech solution, and if the solution is properly implemented and really fits in with kind of the existing context of the organization. And so to really make sure that technology is addressing that true need, it's important to work together, both nonprofit staff and pro bono consultants, to really co-create solutions as equal thought partners. And so take the time to build trust and empathy, have open and honest conversations, not just about the opportunities at the organization, but also the resources and the constraints that their organization is working with. And pro bono consultants also be really candid about kind of where your expertise can fit in, what you can advise on, how you can really support this organization in mapping out that solution. And you do this by practicing active listening and collaborative problem solving. And by doing all of these things, it'll really help open up the opportunities for more innovative designs, more innovative solutions, and ensure that whatever solution that you create together is something, again, that will be sustainable and high impact. And so with all that in mind, we have developed the solution development framework. And this is a guide to help shepherd tech pro bono projects. And it is a client-centric approach that you can apply to help you as you're thinking about how you want to be co-creating some of these tech solutions. This framework is inspired by the systems development lifecycle, and applying the framework can help lead to more impactful projects over time and also more efficient use of nonprofit resources. So the framework, again, has 4 phases: discover, design, implement, and maintain. The first two phases are discover and design. And since we'll be digging deeper into these two phases later on, I'm not going to dwell very long here, but wanted to touch on the fact that these two phases are critical for setting your project up for success. This is where you'll work together to understand the challenge at hand, really uncover the organization's true need, and start mapping out a solution. Once you have identified potential solutions, you'll move into the implement phase. And so implementation really isn't just about the launch of the solution. While that is obviously a very important piece, implement actually covers all the activities from creating and testing the solution to developing a plan for training and implementation. Again, going back to that process matters piece. And obviously, once you have all those pieces in place, it also covers the actual deployment of the solution. Additionally, the implement phase includes ensuring that the solution, whatever it is well documented so that it can be easily understood and maintained by others. Which brings us to the maintain phase. So this is where you will work to ensure that the solution continues to function as intended. This includes not just establishing a regular cadence for updating the solution and maintaining clear logs, again, of all the documented changes that you're making to the technology. It also includes keeping good data to ensure that nonprofits have the information they need to quickly get the solution up and running if something goes wrong. Another piece of this is recognizing that oftentimes organizations change, and so solutions should change with those organizations. So really taking the time to reassess at critical points to make sure that the solution is still meeting the organization's true need. And if it's not, thinking about how you can iterate the solution so that it does meet that need. So again, here is the framework. Wanted to pause here and just highlight that many people often skip over discover and design. They rush through it in the excitement of getting to the doing and the action of the project. And what we want to highlight through this webinar in particular is that it's really important to take time in discover and design. Skipping ahead to implement can be costly and can lead to inefficient projects and unsustainable solutions down the road. So really, each step of this process is designed to make sure that the time you're taking to work on these projects is effective and productive and something that'll lead to really good outcomes. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Miriam to talk a little bit more about discover and design.
And I want to just stay on this slide for a couple more seconds, just to reemphasize what Steph just said, that we knew in releasing this the solution development framework, like Steph said, it's inspired by the systems development lifecycle, which is used in IT. So this isn't revolutionary, but what we're really trying to hone in on is the importance of investing in phases outside of implementation. We see a disproportionate amount of pro bono projects, and just any projects, quite frankly, that land in implementation. And so we wanted to kind of demystify and create more resources for people to do effective discover and design. And we've seen, and there's a growing body of research that shows that there's a huge return in investing in doing the discover and design phases. And so I'll be diving a little bit more into the discover phase, and then Steph will do a similar deep dive into design. And what better way than to kind of wrap our head around these than looking at case studies. So we'll be looking at particular real life pro bono case studies as we talk about each of these phases. And so the main objective of the discover phase, as it's written here, is to uncover the organizational need and ground the solution in the nonprofit's context. This is really, really key because every single organization will have their unique constraints, They'll have a variety of different stakeholders that are influencing the sustainability of the project, from the people who are actually using it to their board members who might be making the funding decisions. And so really ensuring that you're understanding the particular context for that organization and those individuals is absolutely key. And then two of the main activities that we see taking place in the discover phase and really helping to achieve that objective is first to define an end state. This is just basically getting on the same page around what the goal is of that project, of the organization. This might seem really straightforward, and a lot of people might take it for granted that everyone is on the same page, but it's important just taking, you know, a little bit of time on the front end to make sure that everyone is still running towards the same objective. Can just save a lot of heartache down the road for some of these projects. And then the second part is, once you have narrowed in on what that goal and end state is starting to explore all of the different challenges and opportunities that the team could work on that will further help them towards moving towards that end state. And key outcomes of this that Steph touched on earlier is the importance of building trust and alignment in this phase. And I had a colleague who recently described it as creating mind share. I hadn't heard that term before, but really loved that idea of kind of creating, on our team, we call it mind meld from Star Trek, but kind of being able to have that mind meld with the team that you're working on, so that you're on the same page and you're working towards the same thing. And sometimes this can require having a lot of courageous conversations. It can mean, you know, digging out the skeletons in your closet and saying, you know, some of these processes aren't working, and this is what we need help on. And so being able to create that space for vulnerability through empathy and trust, like Steph mentioned earlier, is really so important for the discover phase. And so the case study that we're looking at is a team that was working with an animal welfare organization, and they needed to organize their donor management database and essentially needed a new CRM system. The pro bono consultants that came in kind of heard this at a very, very high level and designed the entire system, and came in and said, we know the software that you'll need, this is what you can use. The organization had actually tried that software before and it didn't work for them. And so that kind of shut down the entire project. The fact that the team came in wanting to implement this particular software and the organization just feeling like they weren't being heard. And so what went wrong here? Before giving you all the answers, we would love to hear your thoughts based on what you know now from Discover and your own experiences. What are some of the things that you think might have gone wrong in this project? So you can choose as many of these options. There's 5 different options here. I'll read them out for those that might not be in the actual conference room but dialed in. But either they did establish a client-centric approach, they jumped to conclusions, they failed to define the project goal, they did not choose the right CRM software, and they did not build trust and empathy. So what were some of the things? You can choose as many as you like. What were some of the things that went wrong here? Like I said, the team, the organization did need a CRM. The team came in with one they had in mind. The organization had already used it, didn't want to use it again, and it kind of just broke down the whole project. We'll wait a couple more seconds as people get their answers in.
And again, the submit button is at the bottom, so you may need to scroll a little bit to submit your answers.
Should we see what people said? All right, so most people voted that the team jumped to conclusions, they failed to define the project goal, and they did not build trust and empathy. Yay, those are all correct. Those are all things that the team did not do in this case. As you all noticed, they kind of jump to conclusions around what the nonprofit might need. They probably didn't look at the context within the one they were working. They failed to have a conversation around specifically where the organization was headed with this and perhaps why the other CRM didn't work for them. And then the lack of trust and confidence. Whenever you go in and make assumptions about what someone needs or kind of pushing something on them, it can really deteriorate the trust with the organization. So those are all key parts in it.
So with that, we're going to do another case study. And so with this one, we kind of heard what went wrong. We want to give you another example. So an education foundation wanted to develop a virtual platform to expand their reach and generate more revenue. They were thinking about establishing an earned income stream. And so they met with pro bono consultants to identify how they could start building that virtual platform. But through conversations revealed that the organization's true need was to actually more strategically build their donor network and really tap into that network. So the team realized that a more impactful project would actually be to develop a CRM to help manage that donor pipeline. And the team is now identifying requirements to help figure out which platform will be the most sustainable fit for the organization. And so similar to what we just did, we want to hear your thoughts on what you think went right for this organization and this project team. So again, you have three choices. We're looking at what went right. They established rapport and open dialogue. They prioritized the nonprofit need. They jumped to solutions. And again, take a few minutes to submit your answers. You may need to scroll down a little bit to hit that submit button. All righty. Gonna give it one more second to get your answers in, and then we'll see results. Great. All right. So it looks like, yeah, what they did right. They established rapport and open dialogue, and they really prioritized the nonprofit need. Excellent. So yeah, this project got off to a really strong start because the team actually took the time to have open conversations and to create clarity around the organization's true need. So, the foundation came to the team with a proposed solution, and instead of just kind of running with it, they took the time to take a step back, do some scoping, kind of uncover what the true need is, what would be a more impactful solution. And by having those conversations, they were able to actually identify a project that would better leverage the resources at the organization and really be effective in helping to maximize the organization's impact through a sustainable solution.
Okay, so to recap what we heard and discover, like we said, best practices here really focus on defining an end state with the organization, making sure there is a shared understanding, you have that mind share, mind meld, and alignment with the team that you're working with, and then creating the time to explore all of the challenges and opportunities that you could work towards. Making sure that you're involving all of the stakeholders. Otherwise, you might end up like the team in case study number 1, where many of the stakeholders did not want to use the solution that they were proposing. So making sure that you speak to all of the relevant people who will touch that solution and that there's agreement upon what that outcome is. And then equally important are common pitfalls to avoid. So you heard us and you saw again in the poll, one of the most common pitfalls is jumping to solutions. So that can either be dealing with a superficial symptom versus the root cause, or going for that shiny, cool object versus what is actually needed to solve whatever the challenge that the organization has. Another really common pitfall is not sharing enough. It's so important to build trust from all ends. We recognize that teams might not start off with a lot of trust for a variety of reasons, but it's so important to create the time to get to know the people and develop that space where you feel safe and you can be vulnerable. And like we mentioned earlier, kind of the flip side of the best practices, failure to include all relevant stakeholders will again bring a lot of projects to a screeching halt. It does take time on the front end, but it can really help teams avoid a lot of blind spots down the road. And now we'll be doing a deep dive into design and kind of talking through this phase as well.
Yeah, great, thank you. So talking about iterating through design. So again, the design phase is where you're going to be working together to prepare the blueprint for the project, really mapping out the structure for the solution to make sure that it meets the needs that were identified through the discovery process. And the two key activities within design is really taking the time to analyze and prioritize a set of challenges and opportunities as it relates to the project at hand. So again, really working to make sure that once you have that full understanding of the nonprofit context, that you're taking the time to think through kind of what is the most impactful project right now that we can accomplish together to make sure that this is something that will be high impact and something that will be able to help address a core need. And you'll also want to take time to really gather requirements, documents, make sure you're understanding what the solution really needs to be doing in order to meet that need. And make sure that as you're thinking through these requirements, that you're taking the time to also consider, how you can make this solution something that will be sustainable, that is something that is compatible with existing processes, existing systems at the organization, and is something, again, that the nonprofit can maintain moving forward. So by having all of these conversations and really taking the time to dig in through this process, it'll help commit everyone to the project vision and be in alignment about what the desired outcome is for the project and as well the process of getting to that desired outcome.
Thanks for sharing that, Steph. And there's so many important parts that go into the design. And here's a case study we recently had as well, where there was a pro bono team working with a children's advocacy agency, and they understood that what the organization needed was a new volunteer intake system, and embarked on this journey of developing a completely custom code solution, which definitely gave me heart palpitations when I heard about this. A really key point that Steph just made about design is the importance of making sure that it fits with existing systems and that there's a plan to maintain it. And so here, as you can see in the last line of the case study, there was no plan for how the nonprofit would maintain this custom solution, who would be on call if it broke, how they would upgrade it. So this was really going down a pretty dangerous path in terms of being a huge resource drain and not really serving the need of the organization. So opening it up again to the group, what do you all think went wrong in this case? And we have multiple choice again. So again, this is a team who is working with a child advocacy organization, helping them rebuild their volunteer intake system, and landed on building a completely custom code solution without a plan of how to maintain the solution over time. So the options are they jumped to potential solutions, they invested in the discovery process, they kept implementation in mind when designing solutions, they prioritized a new and custom solution. We'll give people a few more, the answers are rolling in, so we'll give people a few more seconds. All right, let's look at what people said. Yeah, so absolutely. They jumped to potential solutions and prioritized a new custom solution. That's absolutely right. Those were two of kind of many pitfalls this team stumbled into. They didn't really invest in the discover to understand fully the organization's context, how whether or not they had the capacity to maintain this over time. They, like you all said, prioritized a custom solution and assumed that that would be best for the organization. And they did not keep the long term in mind, how they would implement it and how they would maintain it. I'm excited to share that there is kind of a follow-up to this project. We did a lot of work as they used the actual solutions development framework, and we ended up pausing a lot at design to really understand and look forward to the other phases and thinking, how is this organization going to maintain it? Is it going to be sustainable for them? And they reevaluated the context, and the team is now moving forward with an off-the-shelf cloud solution that meets almost all of the requirements. Is just far more sustainable for the organization to be, in a pipeline of a company that just does this and they can include the upgrades and be on call for customer support. So we were really excited to see this almost 180 shift for this project through the design phase.
So to anchor us back into some design best practices, again, as you can see, it's really important to start with the organizational need. And so again, that really ties into what we were talking about earlier about taking a client-centric approach and making sure that that is a through line that is supporting every aspect of this process. So taking the time to analyze and prioritize different organizational priorities. So that means, really, again, thinking about constraints, assessing risks, and really checking your assumptions as you're thinking through what the best design might be. And to keep the project in scope, it's also really important to identify what aspects of the project, what requirements are must-haves to make sure that the organization can continue to do their work, and what are some features that are nice to have. So being able to not just prioritize overall constraints and resources, but also prioritize the requirements for that project. And once you understand kind of what that prioritization looks like, again, making sure that you are gathering requirements and taking the time not just to think about kind of how the solution itself will work, but assessing any current systems that may be in place already, understanding how they're working, how the organization is using it, and documenting any gaps that a new solution might be able to fill. And consider, again, resources as you're working together to co-create a solution. Really understand how this new solution will be able to fit in to what already exists, to make sure that there is that seamless transition and the nonprofit is empowered to use the solution. And so, again, some common pitfalls that we touched on a little bit in the case study. The first one is really assuming that a complicated or custom solution is the best. Sometimes the simplest solution that still addresses the nonprofit's core need is the best solution, especially when you're taking into consideration, again, those resources and constraints, whatever opportunities there are, thinking about maintenance and implementation and kind of that long-term sustainability. It's really important to make sure that you're not overcomplicating the solution. And again, I know we haven't touched as much upon this, but these phases are presented in a linear fashion, but there are a lot of pieces that really interact with each other. And so thinking about kind of implementation, keeping implementation and maintenance in mind as you're designing will be critical. And that goes to, again, making sure that you're documenting everything in a project requirements worksheet, whether that is, technical details about the solution itself, whether that be instances of troubleshooting. This will make sure that everything is clearly spelled out, and others will be able to quickly understand the solution, get up to speed, and avoid wasting time on repeating failed phases or fixes. And this will be especially important if, for whatever reason, that original project team is no longer available to work on this project. Having everything documented will make sure that anybody can just pick it up, read it, and be able to figure out how to use the solution, how to troubleshoot, all of that. And another thing I want to call out is, again, the interplay between phases. As we mentioned, this team in design really took a strategic pause and went back to uncover that true need. So we want to highlight, don't be afraid to take those strategic pauses throughout project work. While it sometimes may seem cumbersome or annoying to have to do that, it'll save you a lot of time and resources in the long run, and make sure, again, that you're bringing it back to impact and you're maximizing kind of the transformative power of technology. And so, excuse me, you may be thinking, this is all great, this is wonderful, but what do I do with all this information? What comes next? And, as you're thinking about how you can leverage pro bono to start tackling some of your technology projects, or how you can use your skills, we have a few questions to encourage you to start thinking about. So for nonprofits, think about what challenges you are experiencing. Are you having trouble maintaining your donor network or tracking client data? Are you recognizing that you have a million databases and they're not speaking to one another? Start thinking about those challenges that you are experiencing, and consider how a tech solution might help you address some of those core challenges. And with consultants, think about what expertise or skills you bring to the table. So maybe you're really great at taking complex, ambiguous concepts and really boiling that down, honing it into a needs statement. Maybe you are a solutions architect. You're really great at gathering requirements and putting them into kind of a solutions framework. Or maybe you're really great at, again, taking technical concepts and explaining them in layman's terms, which will make you great at training and education. So think about all of those different things and consider which phase of the framework seems to be a best fit for your professional expertise. So again, as you're thinking about how you're going to begin your pro bono journey, there are a lot of people in your existing networks that can lead to a really great and fruitful partnership. So nonprofits, think about the people who are volunteering with you. Think about the people in your network, maybe on your board, and consider what kind of professional expertise they have that you can really tap into to kind of start addressing some of these challenges, start creating projects that you can kind of take forward. And consultants, pro bono consultants, maybe you're thinking, you want to use your skills, you have a good sense of what your skills are, but you're looking for an organization to kind of support. Maybe you already do hands-on volunteering in a nonprofit program, you have that established relationship. Think about how you can maybe do volunteerism in a different way using your skills. And if you need a different place to start, you can also check out Taproot Plus. And Taproot Plus, for those of you who don't know, is an online platform that connects nonprofits to skilled volunteers. And it is a free platform. It's free to use. All you need to do is create an account. And once you're in nonprofits, you can post different projects that you would like support on. And pro bono consultants, you can go onto the platform and browse different opportunities that are a best fit for your skills. And so, you know, there's a link, a button at the top of the page. If you want to click through, it'll take you to Taproot Plus. One really exciting announcement that we have is that soon you'll be able to actually apply the solutions development framework to your projects on Taproot Plus. And so we're giving you a little bit of a sneak peek right now, and just keep your eyes open for additional announcements coming down the road as we roll out this feature. But it's something definitely to look forward to and be excited about.
And in the meantime, if you all want access to the research, you can find it at this link here. And this document, it's pretty brief. We tried to keep it as concise as possible, but it contains all of the information that we went over today. And I definitely encourage you all to check it out. It's free. You can download it. You can share it. You can also find it by clicking the link at the top of the page now. But it also has, it's very interactive. It has a lot of working documents, like Steph mentioned earlier, creating a project requirements document. There's a template at the back to show how you might create a project requirements document. There's also a discovery assessment, which helps you go through a variety of questions to start to address what are those potential needs or opportunities that you could tackle through Tech Pro Bono. So definitely encourage you all to download this and check it out. And it will also be distributed. I'm assuming everyone on this call registered for the webinar. It'll be distributed with the follow-up email. And so you'll find this in your inbox as well. And with that, I think we have a few more minutes. We can open it up for questions, and I can see if we got any. So feel free to add any questions into the chat box, and we can stay on a few more minutes to answer any questions. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining as well.
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
Thank
you all for being here.
And if you don't have any questions top of mind right now, but you think of some questions later on, we included an email on this slide where you can send those additional questions, and we'll be able to answer you there as well. So again, we'll stay on the line if anybody does have any questions top of mind that they'd like to ask now.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, Amira. Yeah, definitely feel free to email us if you have any other questions. Thank you, Lucy. Glad you could join. Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Daniela. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Christina. Good to see you here. The matchmaking process. Great question. So Timothy just asked if we covered the matchmaking process. We can talk to like Taproot Plus, and then I can share how it happens at VMware.
Yeah, so this webinar is really touching upon what happens after you've connected as a team and you're moving forward, guiding the project through. But again, some resources to get started. Taproot Plus is a great way to start identifying some projects where this might be a helpful framework to apply. And again, as we mentioned, you'll soon be able to apply the framework directly on Taproot Plus once we roll out that feature to guide your projects. But really, what we want to encourage you to do is really practice kind of, I guess, citizen philanthropy, where you're really going out and thinking about how you can individually apply your skills to these different projects. And so, oftentimes with a nonprofit, if you're reaching out to, if you're thinking about who you have in your network, and you think, hey, this seems like it could be a great fit, we'd love to work together. This resource is really to help you structure what comes next after you've made that decision. And for pro bono consultants as well, we encourage you to think about organizations in your network, because a lot of organizations are really looking for expertise in tackling a lot of these tech challenges. And so, think about how you can plug in. But again, an easy way to get started, to get matched to projects, is through Taproot Plus. So make sure that you are signing up on the platform. Again, it's free to use. You just need to use an account, and it's a really quick sign-up process. But that'll be a great way to not just for nonprofits to post projects, post your need, but also for consultants to really identify different opportunities and different projects that could be a great fit for your skill set.
Thanks for answering that. And then Adrian just asked if this will be recorded. It will, and by virtue of being in this chat room, you have registered, so you'll be getting a follow-up email with the recording as well as a lot of useful resources.
Yeah, just to highlight, we just posted in the chat, if you are specifically interested in Taproot Plus and how to leverage that resource, you're interested in connecting with pro bono opportunities, feel free to kind of call that out in the chat box, and we'll be able to follow up with you personally with more information on that.
We see you, Juliet. We'll follow up. Yeah. All right. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And thanks, Jessa. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. And like we said, if you all have any follow-up questions or want to be contacted personally about Taproot Plus, feel free to write that into the chat. Otherwise, we will be sending a follow-up email with all of the information we shared, a recording, lots of useful resources. So keep an eye out for that, probably later this afternoon. And Other, thank you so much for joining us. It was really great to have an opportunity to chat with everyone today and to share some of this work.
Yeah. And we hope you continue to make it matter and do pro bono, join this movement. Thank you again so much for joining.